Well, hello, and welcome to the Painted Bread Quarterly Slush Pile. Thank you for tuning in, choosing us among the bazillions of pods out there. But we're still the only ones doing what we do. And what we do is, as we read our submissions, we flag them and say, hey, this would make a great episode. And then we ask the poet and see if they'll allow us to read their work on air and have our editorial meeting on air. So that's what we're going to do today. And today we're thanking Han VanderHart for allowing us to look at their work. And let's take care of that we. I'm so excited that we have a nice big group today. I'm Kathleen Volk Miller, and I don't know if we'll ever have a sound studio again at Drexel. So I am in my on my third floor in Collingswood, New Jersey, as usual, where I've spent so much time. But I love it here. I love my turret, and I'm going to bounce it all the way 6,000 miles to Marion.
I think you
Hi,
should
Marion.
make a sound effect when you do that, like boink, right?
Boing.
Boink.
Okay.
Hello, Slushies. It's Marion. I'm in Abu Dhabi, and we are recording in the evening here, the morning in Philadelphia, and I imagine it's morning time for you too in Canada. You're right, in the same time zone, right, Dag? Fabulous.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
We just
Yeah.
we sprang forward too
Oh, that's right.
this
That's
past
right.
weekend.
So
Yeah.
spring forward, happy Ramadan for those of you who are observing the holy month, Ramadan Kareem. And now I'm going to boing it over to Dagny in Canada.
thank you, Marion. Yeah, just outside of the capital, Ottawa. It's very, very cold here, but our roads are dry. And so my husband, who's a lot more retired than I am, as in I'm not retired at all. He's like, let's get on our bikes. And I'm like, great, you have a good ride. I'll see you later. It's just too cold for me. Anyway, so on that note, I'll roll it down to Lisa.
Good morning. I am not in a turret. I am in North Carolina. And we are having the beginnings of spring. All of our daffodils are out. All of our red buds are in bloom, and it's quite beautiful. I think today it will be almost 80 already. So
Oh,
spring is headed your way. And Jason, I will send it up to you in New York City.
Hi, it's Jason. I'm in New York and it is spring. I just had a poem about how much I miss seeing my trees flower now that I no longer have trees. Um, but yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful day and New York is New Yorking. That's we just roll along. We're
oh,
I won't get into like what New York is up to. We're not holding it together very well.
Let's
yeah.
stop with the trees remaining in your heart. That's
Let's stick to the trees.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what
yeah,
this
let's stick to the
is.
trees.
yeah.
Not the rats. We won't talk about them. Not the rats.
Uh, yeah, this podcast is meant to be about poetry, so we'll keep it there as best we
Not
can.
be poetic. Not poetic.
Um, but I'd like to say hello to Lily.
Oh, sorry.
Hello, Lily.
Hi, I'm here in the fantastic city of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, as are so many of us, and by so many I mean it's us. Um, it what a very interesting drive this morning. Uh, Past few days have been entirely backed up on 95. I'm not entirely sure why, but every time I would go to find out why, it just keeps getting worse. But we made it here on time, and that's what matters. That's what matters.
Yes, you were on time for sure. But you beat me, I think, today. Yeah.
Very, very unfortunate for me to actually remember this time.
Well, we're glad
Yeah,
you're here.
yeah.
Lily,
Always glad to be here.
you just put that image, like Jason put the image of spring trees in my head, and you just put I-95 in my head, right? Like, holy,
Mhm.
right? Just are you coming from the south or from the north down to Philly when you're on
North.
95?
I'm coming from Northeast Philly.
Okay. All right. Woof. Well, solidarity.
Yeah, it's the worst of traffic both ways every day, but
Mhm.
you gotta do what you gotta do.
Sounds like a poem. Or a novel. Best of times,
I'll
worst
I'll
of
th-
times.
I'll think of it in my head and then I'll write it down in my head and then forget it once I get to my destination.
Sounds like a writer.
That's the most important part of writing, is writing it in
Exactly.
your head and then forgetting it.
Getting it. Exactly.
We just call that drafting.
Pre-writing.
Pre-writing. Yeah.
It's my negative first draft.
Hey, I like that.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And Davina.
Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Yay.
Down here in Philly, I can't really tell you what it's like over here. Um, I will say that it's getting a little warmer though, so I am a bit happy about that. Um, yeah, I don't really have much to add this morning. Sorry about that.
Been, been
Being here is the only addition we want.
That's it. Good to see you. I'm so glad everybody's here. This is going to be a great conversation about Han VanderHart's poems, and we're so lucky to have their poems with us today. And the first one is Ars Poetica with a Broken Bucket, which is a great title. And I'm going to ask Lisa. Lisa, do you want to read the poem?
I would be happy to. Thank you, Marion. Ars Poetica with a Broken Bucket, after Jean Leon Jerome's Truth Coming Out of Her Well, 1896. It is her well in the painting. Jerome painted her many times, naked truth, standing in the water at the bottom of the well, or thrown in and killed, or emerging from a depth she has owned. In nearly every drawing or painting, she holds a mirror, or a mirror hovers, shining above her, lit presumably by reality even greater than her personified thighs, breasts, streaming hair. Why is truth an angry woman? Why not? Why is truth angry? What is so truthful about anger? And what is the lie in peace? In Jerome's best known version, the mirror has been replaced with a scourge, a whip, its leather wet and trailing the wet stones. At first, I thought it a broom, domestic. A whip is also domestic. The source of truth being in the well is an aphorism from Democritus. Of truth we know nothing, for truth is in a well. But the literal Greek is stark and more distant. Truth is in an abyss. What if you own the abyss and make it yours? What if the possessive grammar allows you a sentence forward? Truth is wet and cold and angry. She has climbed an abyss, and her arms and legs are strong as trees. Her scourge makes a rasp against the stones.
Oh, nice job. Well done.
Nice reading. Very nice
Beautiful.
reading. And slushies, pardon me, if you hear a barking sound in the back, that's me with bronchitis. So I'm trying to mute myself every time I cough, but in case it gets through, apologies. Holy mackerel. This poem sits like a prose poem, right, on the page, slushies, if you get to take a look at it. And we'll also include Jerome's Truth Coming Out of Her Well with the show notes, right? It's a quick Google. And boy, oh boy, is it rewarding to look at Jerome's image next to this poem, this ekphrastic.
I saw at least one tattoo rendering of it as well, which was kind of stunning. I'd love to have those side by side.
I saw that tattoo rendering as well. I did.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I really love this movement in the middle where it moves from the because like at the very beginning, with the ekphrastic poem, it's kind of the creation of the condition of the poem or the painting, and then a description of the painting, and then this move of why is truth an angry woman? Why not? Why is truth angry? What is so truthful about anger, and what is the lie in peace? And the way that the question mark is postponed until the very end, so that you have all these questions that are ending with periods. That it was really like clever, like there was like a sly humor in there, but it also kind of like turns the poem so that we're thinking about the allegory. And I thought it was really interesting because like I don't know, like years ago I went to this exhibit of I can't remember the painter, but it was like from the 1920s, and it was an exhibition. It was a woman, and everyone was like, "Well, I don't understand. She's not a famous woman. She's not an allegory. What have you done?" And so like the way that it sort of pulls us back into that sense of painting as allegory, and that like, the painting isn't just an aesthetic object that we see in terms of light and color and shape and form, but has this kind of meaning about what truth is and how truth would be personified. Like I love that turn towards it, the way that it kind of pulls us back into another way of seeing the poem, but then is also very contemporary and kind of keeps us as contemporary viewers, but sort of moving into the poem. And I do love the fact that ekphrastic poems don't have the image. That there's like this really interesting relationship between the unseen or seen if you look it up. I mean, now with Google, like it's so much easier. Um, but I really love that turn when it kind of moves from Jerome painting the painting, a description of the painting, to like my meditation on the painting itself, which then kind of I felt really brought in as a reader at that moment, particularly by the questions.
Mm.
Yeah, and I have to say, like, the mark of an ekphrastic for me is often like, can if the poem conjures an image of the art piece, right? Does it also sort of like amplify an idea or create an idea so that it's obviously like on its own? And I think you just went through this sort of like almost like back and forth windshield wiper nature of this prose poem, right? It's like here's the context, here's the image, here's me reading the image, here's the meditation on the idea of truth and allegory and the harshness of that rasp, right? And I'll be honest, like I know Jerome, I don't know this painting. I just, it's not, I'm sure it's super, super famous, but part of the delight was looking it up and seeing this rage-filled face of a nude ascending, right? A well, like digging herself out of a well. It's ferocious, right? It's really quite interesting. And one question before, and please help me with this. I know truth is personified, right, in this woman coming out of the well, but that line, personified thighs, sounds so delicious.
Yes, I love
Help me
that.
crack that open, those personified thighs. Like, it's not that the thighs are personified, it's that the thighs are personifying truth. That's the personified thighs. Is that how that works?
Yeah, because it's a list, right? The personified thighs, breasts, streaming hair. That
Okay.
in the personification of truth, the bodily parts are fleshly present. And
Present.
so, like, these are the thighs of truth. This is the boobs of truth. This is the
Which
hair of truth.
necessarily have to be sturdy and
Yeah.
kind of up for it. Yeah.
Love it.
Well, I mean, I mean, I knew Jerome's work, and I didn't like know this particular painting. And there's something like a little blocky about it, right? Like with a
Yeah.
lot of Jerome's work, there are like these sort of like very weird lines, like um the postures of the figures are often, you know, off. But in a way that like that's what you're there for, right? Like that's sort of like the thing that kind of separates him from like David or, someone else of, that kind of allegorical, historical genre. But this one, like there's something, I mean, I kept thinking about Artemisia Gentileschi. Like I kept thinking about, these sorts of like angry women, but there's something, yeah, there's something like about the fleshiness of truth that VanderHart is kind of getting to.
Hmm. I
Because
never,
she has a whip, she's coming for you, right?
yeah, she really is. Like it's very direct. It's very, very direct. And so, and for me, an interesting move in this poem is when we get to at first, I thought it a broom, domestic. And this is the only line in the whole poem where there's suddenly a speaker. Rather than this reading almost objectively, we get an I inserted here. And I found that really interesting because it could have been said something like at first it seemed a broom or something like that, right? Which would have been in keeping with the structure of the language in the poem. But that I is very, very definite. And I thought that introduces something interesting and and different in the midst of this poem for me. I don't know. What do others think of that?
I love that you see that, right? I love that raising the issue of that first person pronoun. It didn't bump me in the poem because it feels like such a meditation, right? It feels like almost essayistic in its way, and that's not a ding on the poem at all.
No.
Like the way it sort of unfolds.
And I do want to add, I don't find it jarring, Marion.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't find it jarring. I just found it so interesting. I thought it's like an invitation to be a little more subjective here, to be a little more.
I think that's what I wanted to say. Like, I just was introducing my students to John Berger's book, Ways of Seeing, and the BBC documentary that goes with it. And the first like 5 minutes of the first, I think it's the first episode, is so fantastic. And it's like this young John Berger, right? Like cutting a head out of a classical painting. It seems totally irreverent. And then the camera sort of does a close up on his face. And he was like making this argument about like, you know, perspectival painting, right? And how all things assume the perspective of the eye, right? And he's like, and it's all like, and vision, right, becomes the logical formation, right, of philosophy, epistemology, blah, 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 right? But it's that first person eye, and then the pun on the eye, right, that I think is happening here because it's an ekphrastic, and it's everything about the subjectivity of the speaker looking, which is why I love it. It's that I sentence, clock and a mistake. At first I thought it was this, it wasn't this, it's that. I love shit like that, right? Like I think that like poets and essayists gain such a funky level of credibility when they cop to that legit error, right? Like it's like, oh shit, just look at it, you know?
It's really satisfying. Yeah.
And that's one of the things I really loved about this poem. So often poems will direct you down a chute to a certain discovery. And this poem teaches me something, but it allows me to discover it along with the speaker. You know, you're thinking along. And I think that's the point where that becomes really evident, you know, oh, I thought it was a broom first, you know. And I also really appreciate how it goes from this kind of abstract intellectual exercise to the embodied present in the painting. And by the end, truth is wet and cold and angry. You know, she's a badass and she is coming for you. Here's her rasp, you know, trailing along the stones. And that's such a great enactment of the painting because she looks pissed. You saw this woman coming out of the well, you would run, you know?
Yeah.
What do you all make of her mouth being open?
Well, that seems like a rejoinder, doesn't it? Right? Like, of course she'd come up screaming and be saying, what the hell, you know? Why'd you think that was okay? You know? So it says rejoinder to me. Yeah.
Right. And that she's mid-speech. And it's really interesting too that like that is some like a really compelling aspect of the image, but the poet doesn't talk about the figure's mouth being open necessarily, you know?
Yeah.
My friend KVM might call that a rebel yell, right? That she would be howling, right? Coming out of that moon, the well whooping. And the reason I'm saying my friend KVM, because the technology gods are being difficult with Kathy's audio. And when she speaks, she sounds, as Jason would say, like she's speaking through a ceiling fan. So unfortunately, we might not hear KVM until that gets rectified. But we love her, and she's throwing some genius in the chat. Like that rebel.
It's a really great loss.
If KVM could talk, she would be speaking as clearly as truth with her mouth wide open and her fierce stare.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, well said.
Davina, did you want to say anything about the poem?
I actually did, but it seems as though I was kind of reanalyzing as everyone was speaking. So, my first thought, I'm also looking at the picture on my phone, but when I first looked at it, it just, if you were to, without the poem, I would have thought first glance that she looks fearful. Maybe the truth that was within that well was what scared her. And I think it reminds me of that line, or not even line, the saying, ignorance is bliss, especially with why is truth an angry woman? Why not? Why is truth angry? What is so truthful about angry? And what is a lie in peace? And I mean, I think about, I guess I think about like when you're a child, you don't really know everything about the world, right? You're lied to a little bit, like for example, with the concept of Thanksgiving. You're told that Native Americans and Pilgrims, they rejoiced and they were so happy and they became friends and lived happily ever after with a rainbow at the end and some turkey. But then as you grow older, the truth becomes more apparent, more naked and wet, as the poet had stated, and then also more angry. Like they were wronged. And that's what I kind of feel with most things that are apparent with life, you know? And also another thing that I was thinking about was when we talked about the broom, um, I like that human feeling of the correction. Like I even had that moment. I was on mute, but I was looking at it and I'm like, where do we see a whip? And I'm looking at it and I said, oh, that's where it is. And it just felt so, what's the word? Reassuring that I wasn't just the only one who had that moment of realization where you have to do like a double take. Um, and then also the line, truth is an abyss. I think the abyss itself was kind of imagined and put to life by like depicting a well. That well is so deep, hollow, empty. And just to climb out of it, just think about that. For a woman to climb out of a well, there's no ladder in there, but her anger kind of fueled her. And like, you know, and while carrying an object, that's how I guess anger can fuel a person when when you're encountering a truth. So, I mean, that's what I was just analyzing, just making note in my head.
Davina, I think you've nailed it, frankly, right? Because in the first couple lines of the poem, the poet actually speaks about the other paintings that Jerome made of truth in the well, and the fact that she's like drowned at the bottom in one of them, right? And those paintings are lost, I think. I don't, my art history is a little shabby, but I think that painting got lost. But if you take them as like in a sequence, right? Right? It's almost like this resurrection of truth, and she's coming back like horrified, appalled, afraid, and you know, like, and that anger as you described. Pretty intense. Pretty intense. So what do you say, compadres? Are we ready to vote?
Absolutely.
I think so.
Excellent. I think so. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh, it's Granimals unanimous. Yay. All right. Thank you, Han VanderHart. Ars Poetica with a broken bucket is in. Oh, we're so lucky to have this poem. It's been a minute since we published an ekphrastic, so I'm stoked. All right. So speaking of being stoked, I am cultivating my field of nose is the next poem by Han. And is anybody feeling compelled
Oh, I
to
would
read this?
love to read this if
I
that's
love that,
okay.
right? When you're compelled to read it. Go, Dagny.
This title just, wow. I just love it. I was drawn in right away. I'm like, I'm so here. So I am cultivating my field of nose. Soft as lamb's ear, no. Curly as the corn's leaves, no. Tall as the okra, no. Brought low by the hurricane, no. Growing long in the rain as my friends' luffas, no. A no, fresh as the no on my students' faces when confronted with an M dash or a semicolon, no. You want to hike a mountain today, asks my love, and no. The singing kind of no. The irrepressible kudzu, no. Rows of no and my hoe. I drag its corner down to furrow more no's. I cover the nose over, I tamp the nose, I water the nose. The nose will flourish here. The nose will flower and fruit, and I will not pick the nose while they are green, unless I want to. And then I will slice and gently fry the nose and eat them. And I will continue to tend the nose so that some may grow large and to full height. And I will weed around the nose quite violently, because oh, the tenderness of letting something grow, making sure the sun and rain can touch its every side, letting a living thing abide, resisting the coercive yes and the yoke that comes with it. It takes a green no, a bruisable daisy chain of no's, a spring rain of no's, the stone's weight of a single no in your palm. Oh,
Well done. Yeah.
thank you.
See,
Thank you, Han. Wow. Wow, wow, wow.
Wow.
I love the whole
compelled,
concept of this.
amazing,
Oh,
amazing. And slushies, if you can imagine, this too looks like a prose poem, and it's working with spaces that are split with a vertical line,
a
right? I
pipe.
don't, right? Like it's a slash, but it's not like a forward slash or backslash. It's just a upright line.
It's often called a pipe.
It's what's called a pipe. That mark.
That mark is often called a pipe, at least by web developers. Yeah. Which
Oh,
is what I do during the day. So yeah.
Wait,
okay.
pipe with a P or pipe with a K at the end?
Pipe.
Pipe. Okay, with a P.
P-I-P-E. Yeah, pipe.
And what
Like
is this
pike. I
form
wanted to be like a
called?
weapon.
Like, I know, it's like, right? Seriously. What's this form called? Like, does this have a name when poets use a pipe or a pike?
I don't know. I like pike. I mean, that's quite violent. Yeah.
We're pointing
Yeah.
our own.
I mean, this is very much a prose poem, as you say, Marion, and yet it has these very definite it leans into the idea of lineation within the prose poem is what those do for me. How do other people see them?
I saw this as a lyric list poem,
Yeah.
but I like the formatting as a prose poem.
Mhm.
And I have seen this form a lot recently, but I think it works very well here. I think if this were just a list poem of the phrases cascading down the page without the pipes, I don't know. I don't think it would be as entrancing.
I think I totally agree with you on that, Lisa, because this is definitely a format that I feel I see a lot these days. And sometimes I find it feels like I'm being stopped, and stopped in a way that's not helpful. You keep hitting a wall, right? But here in the way that you've just described, I find it's quite for me, it feels quite effective. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll
You know,
say
and
in sort of like the context of like this is what the kids are doing.
Yeah.
It's usually not with a pipe. It's usually with the vergul,
Yeah.
and I often think of it as kind of it's like centering a poem. It makes everything look good, and it saves you the work of having to actually discover lineation. But I think in this context, it actually works really well because the litany or the anaphora or the repetition of the no needs some kind of barrier, but then it also needs a kind of trajectory, that the prose poem has a sort of forward motion that's entirely dependent on the intonation of the sentence rather than the lineation. So the pipe sort of splits the difference and gives you a kind of almost bullet point between the different no's, but then continues the trajectory. And so the forward motion continues to have that kind of speed and force and velocity, but with a kind of demarcation of where each one ends.
hey, so I know KVM is in the sort of like limbo land of technological goo. However, I feel like I'm channeling her because I can imagine KVM saying, say that like my brother David is sitting across from you. So can you go back to vergul? What's a vergul?
Oh, that's a backslash.
It's just the backslash,
It's
right?
just the, yeah,
Okay. And but it's not a like the
it's not a front
backslash.
slash.
So
I
okay.
wouldn't really
So
use as a front slash unless you're doing like fractions. Like,
seriously.
Unless
That's
you're
really,
mathing. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm all caught between the M dash and the N dash, which I just learned about. I didn't realize there was a difference. Like,
oh, yeah.
holy shit.
But the N dash is
But
almost never used. The N dash is only used for like a range of numbers. Like an N dash, the hyphen connects to words or shows a break. The M dash is just a sort of like, we're stopping and we're starting again, and there's no right or wrong. It's just a break. The N dash has very little use, but yes, but it is a different.
Thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for a long time, like 2 N dashes was 1 M dash if you're on a typewriter
right.
and you have a distinction between manuscript and print, but
That's what
that's
I
broken down
remember.
with WYSIWYG.
Yeah.
That's
What you see is what you get computing.
Yeah.
But I love this notion that the Vergul is indicating momentum, right? Or is potentially indicating momentum, and that this is tied in with this broader experimentation in terms of momentum, lineation, and the line breaks that are implied with those caesures here, in which the pipe sits. And I just want to focus on maybe like the last third of the poem that says, I will continue to tend the nose so that some may grow large and to full height, and I will weed around the nose, space, pipe, quite violently, space, pipe, because oh, the tenderness of letting something grow, space, pipe, right? Like that is, it is so beautifully accurate for the violence of weeding, right? Like you're out there snatching things around, the budding plant, or you're deadheading plants, right? Which is a necessary violence if you want those to bud again, or if you want them to come back. So I just kind of love this, the way the poem's working in these dualities, these like little swirly paradoxes of you got to kill it to grow it, right? You have to weed violently, right? You have to cultivate your nose, right? If you're going to garden them.
No, it's so true. Every year I have to say to my husband, let me get in there and weed the carrots or we will have nothing. You have to perform a lot of destruction, including a lot of these little tender seedlings that would have been carrots themselves, but they can't be when they're all on top of each other. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and I love that message in here so much. Yeah.
And that's the other function that these pipes perform, is the space between the kinds of nose. It is almost enacting a field, a cultivated field in its form.
Mm.
I also would like to highlight the delight in this piece and the way the poet plays with sound, and just is clearly having a fantastic time manipulating sound, all the long O sounds in the middle. It's nice to see someone enjoying themselves so thoroughly in writing a poem. I think that delight comes across.
Yeah, absolutely. Delight's a good word for it, Lisa. I totally agree. That's the wonderful energy in this poem, even though there's also that edge of destruction. It's very much here I am. Listen.
I know we already discussed the pipes, but when we were first going over it, it reminded me of absolute value in math, which is so crazy. I don't like math at all, but I thought it was very interesting because, absolute value, but the function of no for the poet is not absolute. It is so grandiose, so far. I love the way that the word no that kind of just stops you in your tracks. The poet kind of uses it in such a creative and imaginative way that kind of paints a picture. At first, when I was reading it, I don't know why, I'm thinking when you're writing, like you're just at a roadblock or a writer's block, you just cross out no, but somehow that no flourishes into something like more grandiose, even when even if the idea is good, you still don't feel resonated with it. But I like the version that everyone else had came up with. And I really did enjoy this piece.
The absolute value observation is brilliant. Thank you. And I
I
can't unsee
love
it now,
that.
and I really love seeing it.
Yeah.
All right, friends. I will say this, it's the kind of poem that I want to go back and read, right? Like immediately. And I want to hear it read too, which is a classic KVM-ism, right? She always talks about that. Do you want to stay with it? And it's so funny, like Slushies, you can't see this in the chat, but KVM is making herself known, making her presence known. And it feels a little bit like we're having a seance, right? Like I don't want to speak
Mm,
for
It's like
her,
Ghost
right?
Kathy says.
But
yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like her
Yeah.
spirit's coming through, right? Like our Zoom session today, this slush pile session is definitely channeling some amazing ideas and wonderful editorial input from everyone. And thanks again to Han. I think we're ready to vote. What do you say? We have one more poem by Han, but let's vote on this one. I am cultivating my field of no's. 1, 2, 3. Excellent, right? And oh, this is great in the chat. Lisa says all signs point to yes, right? And Kathy's got her thumbs up. Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, another unanimous experience of Han's poetry. And that leaves us with one more poem this evening, and it's partial listing of my jealousies. And does anyone feel like they want to read that?
I can take the
Do
I can
it.
take the
Take the
reins.
helm. Grab the mic.
Partial listing of my jealousies. Where your fingers meet the plastic grocery bag's creased handles, or your dog's warm tongue in the morning, the way you look at the moon at night, sometimes taking a photo, or how you think about the bees, present or absent in a flower. Apparently, I'm jealous of Eve, of first humans, of first touch and taste and bite, of whatever keeps you up thinking of blackberries at night. Probably of the blackberry itself. Dark-eyed and glossy, more careful of speech than I am, more easily put in your mouth, and now I am back in the hot, thorn-pricked berry bushes of my youth, by some country wayside, my arms stained and torn, gallon ice cream bucket swinging, pulling berry after berry without knowing, oh, without knowing you, and your tender mouth and mind exist in another country, and that I could be jealous of a whole damn county, of the entire state of Alabama. And I apologize. I said country, and it was county. My apologies. I messed up a little bit. Slash.
Still a great read.
Still a great read. Still a great read.
Whenever I poem battle, it was like I thought the whip was a broom. I thought the county was a country.
Oh, there you go. So it's sort of extending the whole thing, right? What fantastic images.
Oh, I just love that opening
Your
line
fingers meet the
so
plastic
much.
grocery bag creased handles.
Yeah.
Warm's tongue in the morning.
It's
Fantastic.
just so incredibly tactile. You know, it seems it's mundane, right? And yet there's something about how it exists there on the page that just, yeah, pulled me in right away.
Absolutely.
Well, the possession, right? Might I be the hand upon? Might I be the glove upon that hand? Right? Like it's that whole desire to have, yeah, the everything, and to have permanent contact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever keeps you up and thinking blackberries at night. Good Lord, right? That's so great. Probably the blackberry itself, dark-eyed and glossy. More, oh.
I love dark-eyed for the blackberry. That's wow. Yeah.
Thorn prickberry. All right, so there's so much to love in this poem, but I'm gonna make a dick move here, which
Do it.
is
Oh,
when I was in elementary school,
Do it.
junior high, my grammar teacher made a big damn distinction between envy and jealousy. Right? Envy is what you desire. Jealousy is what you're afraid people are going to take from you. So I'm jealous of means like you're holding it close.
mm.
But
it's
envy,
used interchangeably with envy now.
It
Yeah.
is?
That
Has
feels like
changed?
complaining about nauseous versus nauseated.
That's what I'm
Feels
thinking.
like,
Okay, I told you I was being a dick. I totally gave you a
yeah.
true warning that I was going to be a dick about that.
Yeah. I'm a dick about unique. Like I just keep saying to my
Yeah.
students, if you use the word unique to mean special, it will, and then you won't have a word that means unique. Like it's up to you. You
Exactly.
can hate, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's a new film at the it's somewhere in New York being shown. Forgive me, I don't know the details, but it's about a woman who like loves grammar so much she went around, set up a table and did like grammar interventions on the street, right? And just people would stop by and they would ask grammar questions and she would ask and answer grammar questions. And I just thought, how lovely. And it was, people loved it. And Lisa's nodding her head. Did you read about this in the Times too? Did you see it?
I did. And it made me think of the Eat Shoots and Leaves book.
Oh,
And the
love
woman
that.
who used to go around with a Sharpie and correct grammar on signs in public.
Right, right,
We have to
right.
take a stand somewhere.
Right, exactly. Somewhere in this world, in this chaotic world. So KVM writes, I love how clearly and simply and beautifully the poem illustrates a mind's trajectory, right? And then she said, that's what I'm doing now, which I think she loves me because I don't know how I'm doing it. So
Aw.
it might be that, it might be
I'm pretty
like,
sure
you
she
know,
loves you. I
we're
think that's
on
more than that.
we're on the Ouija
Yeah.
board right now, and she's just giving me a heart on the Ouija board. That's what she's giving.
Yeah.
But I love this, like how clearly and simply and beautifully it illustrates a mind's trajectory, right? And I think you're giving me permission to not be a dick about this distinction, right? To
I
let
mean, does
go
it
of,
actually bother you, or do you feel like you're supposed to be bothered by it?
um, I think the latter. Good question, right? Like I think the latter, and I think this is my editorial brain kicking in, right? Like if we like the world is going to collapse around us, OMG, right? If we publish a poem that has jealousy used in the title when it should be envy, right? But yeah, I think there's a little stickler in me, a tiny little stickler, and the stickler isn't about my sensibility as much as perceived wrong, right? Like
I mean,
that's
my stickler is about like we're sort of just supposed to see what people meant instead of what they wrote. And that's where I like I mean I'm not a like I get that there are multiple grammars, you know, everyone's right to their own language, but there's also a point at which it crosses over into you knew what I meant, and then that
yeah,
becomes a crisis. Like once it turns into like oh, you know what I mean by this, even though it's not what it actually says, and no one's and someone a writer doesn't hold themselves accountable for what they actually wrote. They're
right.
kind of expecting, which is what we do with text messages. I mean, I don't even see errors anymore in text messages. Like my
Oh yeah,
brain
every red
has
has
already just like
Oh,
autocorrected
really?
everything.
Oh, that's
Um,
interesting. Yeah.
but yeah, so I don't know. It didn't. I'm just
Mhm.
trying. I mean, it's possible. Like I'm like, do I not see that because I wasn't taught that distinction, or is that distinction like? I don't know. What do other people think about jealousies versus envies?
Well, it doesn't bother me, but it reminds me of like, have your cake and eat it too always drives me nuts because it should be eat your cake and have it too.
Oh,
Yeah.
ooh, that's a good
Yeah.
one.
Everybody's reversed it. And, it makes a lot more sense when you do it the right way. And yet we all know what we mean by it. So, yeah.
Right. And I think that's KVM's jumping in on the chat too. She's like, we all say jealous, like it's just in
Exactly.
use, right? In like vernacular speech, we all say jealous and we mean envy, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the way the language is changing. And I think Jason, that goes to my like confession of being like a dick and or a stickler is I love the word stickler too, because it sounds like I'm a stick in the mud. Do you know what I mean? It's like this has to be a rule and it never changes, which is not true of grammar, right? It's not true of language, right? I mean, the rules might be fixed, but language changes all the time, right? The way we sort of borrow and flow and emerge. And KVM reminds us too that people even say jelly, which might actually have to be the title of the episode.
Jelly.
I don't know if we're
I'm
ready.
so jelly.
So jelly, so jelly. That might for the win, KVM, for the win.
And this
And
and this is kind of a perfect moment too, because the whole end of this poem, this is a poem of longing, and it's of the beloved's remembered absence. So
Yeah.
the beloved is here, present in the moment, but the speaker is casting back to a time in the past before they knew the beloved, right? And just having that sense of longing for the person they didn't yet know, but love so clearly now. And that line just kills me. Oh, without knowing you. In the fourth to the last line. I think this poem at that line, and now I am back in the hot thorn pricked berry bushes. I think it just steamrolls from that line forward. It's just has so much power.
So great. So great.
That
Yeah,
was
it's
such an incredible way of putting it. Like, I have to use some slang here. You absolutely munched, Lisa. And for those who don't know, munched means you did a great job. So you did. That was amazing. I loved it.
Snap.
oh,
All
I
right,
love
mine.
it.
Yeah, I mean, the way the syntax is wrapped around the lineation and the way that you sort of like don't quite anticipate what's coming and it kind of stretches out these like sentences is really amazing without ever using any periods, right? There are no periods and no capitals except for the letter I. And so the lineation is kind of working as our only form of punctuation along with some commas. Um, it's well done. There's a period at the end.
There is a period at the end. But I think Davina, don't laugh at me. I'm going to try to use the word in a sentence. This poem munched, I think.
Did
And
it
so what?
eat it up with
And you
no
know what?
crumbs?
For your first time, you used that correctly. Like, I'm so happy.
Thank you so
used
much.
that so well.
Good coach. I appreciate you.
It's like on fleek. By the time you get
But it's
good at it, it's
on
going to be
fleek,
gone.
One
right?
day I'll
Yeah.
teach you guys all the vocabulary that's in my
Right.
arsenal.
Thank you. You need to intervene. Like teach us how to express ourselves. All right. So now I just want to put one more thing on the table, which is just the eroticism, right, of the first line. And I know it's a grocery bag, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yes, I'm going to interrupt myself for a moment because Lisa just wrote, "Don't be jelly, we're munching here" is fantastic, right? There we go.
I think
Put
that's
it
the
all
title of
together.
the episode is
There you
Don't Be
go.
Jelly, We're Munching
There you
Here.
go. I
Oh,
want to
nice.
I remember a poet who I haven't had the chance to hear from for ages, Ross Martin.
Ross, how is Ross?
I don't know, but Ross Martin, we're thinking of you right now, sending out, we're pulsing good vibes to you in the world, wherever you are. Because I remember The Cop Who Drives Alone, is that the
Yeah, the
book?
cop who drives alone.
And
Who
I can't
rides
believe
alone. The cop who rides
the Cop Who
alone.
Rides Alone, the Cop Who Rides Alone.
On the
And
Zoo Press, when Zoo Press was like the
the thing.
press.
Okay, so Davina, in the olden days, imagine it's like Wayne's World right now, right? Like in the olden days, there's something called Zoo Press, and Ross Martin was published on Zoo Press, and there's this whole Googleable scandal that you can get into around Zoo Press, but that's not the point of what I'm going to say. What I'm going to say is Ross taught the word frottage. I
You didn't know
didn't
the
know
word
what
frottage?
I didn't know what frottage was and didn't know how to say it. I thought it was frottage, right? So it was back and forth, frottage, frottage. Who knew? What do I know, right? But he had this great poem about frottage, frottage, right? And would read it at all of his readings. And then I'm looking at this, like where your fingers meet the plastic grocery bag's creased handles is such a specific domestic image, right?
Mhm.
But oh my God, those creases, right? Like I'm like, how do you not think of,
Love
you know,
handles.
exact handles and hands and fingers and
You weren't thinking of love
frottage.
handles, Marion.
Perhaps me.
You
Perhaps
were
that's my
thinking of a
thing.
very different body part.
Well, exactly.
Our
But,
listeners
I was
don't,
thinking it too.
don't get to see what
further
Marion
down
is
from the
doing
love
with her
handle.
hands.
What's that? What's
I,
that?
I was thinking it too.
Yeah.
I was on the same page.
The body has its creases, I'm just gonna say, and it's a delight. It's a delight to see it delivered in that first line.
It's
So
many folds and creases. Yeah.
it's many folds and creases.
Lovely.
I
Exactly.
will say, as much as the poem ends on a period, whatever jealousies and envies that the poet, conjures up as the years go on will never end. It'll be never ending. And I kind of resonate with that because it's kind of the partial listing of it, it reminds me of like how my mind works. You know, like social media is a very big example. I'll see someone, I'm like, wow, you know, I'm going to use another slang here. So get a paper and pencil, like body so tea. Like, you know, I will think, you know, like, look, like I want to have her body, or I love her hair, or I love her, like the way that she styles that. So it's like you become jealous, and it's like this never ending list of jealousies or envies. And it's like, it becomes so overwhelming. This is just a shortened version of it. And I think this is only like the jealousies or envies that like the poet could remember at that very moment. And again, it'll probably be more even after that. So
Absolutely. I think you're right. That sense of momentum perpetuates beyond, right? Like the poem is a jewel box, right? But you still have that sense of its engine, right? It's still purring on and murmuring on, for sure, for sure, for sure. All right, friends, what do you think? Are we ready?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Get your hands ready and unfold them. 1, 2, 3. Yahoo! Han, 3 for 3. What a delight. These poems are astounding. We are so lucky to have them in PBQ. Thank you, Han VanderHart. Thank you. And thank you, colleagues and friends. And KVM, though you're silent technologically, we know you're here collectively effervescing with us about these poems.
Yeah. Perfect.
All right, slushies, hang in there. We're with you wherever you are, in your ears and reading right alongside you. You know, I don't know what to say other than that. The world's a crazy place right now, but you know, hold tight.
Read some poems.
And read some poems.
Read
And
some poems.
that's an allusion to Jason Schneiderman's book called Hold Me Tight, which is in fact brilliant. So that's my plug.
Oh, thanks.
Jason's Hold Me Tight.
I heard
Anybody
you
else
was a
have a plug?
bomb.
Oh, actually,
Yeah.
can I plug another thing? It was my pub date for Nothingism last week.
Oh,
So you can
nice.
now order Nothingism, Poetry, The End of Print Culture. It is out in the world from the University of Michigan, Poets on Poetry Press.
No, it's not. It's on my bedside table.
Oh, thanks.
Let's just be clear
Awesome.
about
All
that.
right. Nothing. Congratulations, Jason. That's fantastic.
That's
And
awesome.
KVM, and slushies, pause for a moment, concentrate on KVM, put your fingers on the proverbial Ouija board on the planchette, because she's saying to you, keep reading, slushies, keep reading. Love you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.